South Dakota and its Business Law Committee welcome to the Nonprofit Continuing Legal Education Program. This program is historic. It is historic not for its topic. It is not historic for its venue. It is not historic for its speakers. It is instead historic because of you, a diverse mix of attendees that are present in our continuing legal education program. The South Dakota State Bar has opened its doors and invited the attendance of anyone interested in South Dakota nonprofits to this presentation. We have lawyers and non-lawyers. We have representatives of large nonprofit organizations and small nonprofit organizations. We have professional fundraising executives and lay officers and directors. And last week in Rapid City, we had a senator, a representative, and several of their constituents in attendance as well. I want to acknowledge up front, at the top of this program, here and now, that everything that we will discuss at this program will not be relevant or useful to everyone in attendance. However, I do guarantee that there is something for everyone here today. We intend to cover lots of ground and ask you to indulge the technical discussion while mining nuggets of information that will make you a better officer, director, staff person, or lawyer for your local nonprofit organizations. Our common goal is to raise the profile of philanthropy in South Dakota. And I am so proud of this day. It is the culmination of many things. As president of the State Bar in 2001, I challenged our members to get back to their profession, to their community, and to the state. That challenge manifested itself in many ways. Part of that manifestation was asking the Business Law Committee of the State Bar to review the need to update a state law or set of statutes that were over 50 years old that govern the nonprofit corporations in South Dakota. Under the capable leadership of Amy Arndt and Bobby Thury, the result of this effort is before you in the form of the revised Model Nonprofit Corporations Act that has been adopted or adapted for South Dakota. The content of the Act is on the State Bar's website at sdbar.org. We did not reprint the Act in your materials. We didn't do so because of its bulk, because of the relevance to a lot of you here, and we didn't do it also because it's still a work in progress. We are continuing to make minor revisions to the Act for the legislative session coming up in 2016. Another unique feature of this program is the timing. We have flipped the traditional structure of dealing with new legislative enactments through the State Bar. Under the traditional method of dealing with legislative enactments, we would pass legislation first and then come to our membership with continuing legal education programs to educate and explain that legislation. Here, we have flipped that order. We are coming to you first with the education on the new revised Model Nonprofit Corporations Act before it's been enacted into law in South Dakota. And many people have asked why. And there's a simple reason. It's because we listened to our legislators and their constituents. In the last legislative session, we brought the revised Model Nonprofit Business Corporations Act to the legislature, and we heard from the legislators and constituents that we weren't ready yet to adopt a new law, and that we need to make some modifications to accommodate our small nonprofit organizations. As a result of those listening sessions, we have revised the Act. We pulled it from the last legislative session and have changed it in significant ways to meet the demands and needs that were voiced in the last legislative session. Now, our speakers are going to go through some of those significant changes, but I want this point to be emphasized. We have changed the legislation to allow an existing nonprofit organization to retain its governance under the old and current South Dakota Nonprofit Corporations Act. If an existing nonprofit corporation wants to opt in or convert to the new act, it has to take affirmative action through its board of directors and membership, if applicable, in order to be governed by the new act. So, existing nonprofit organizations have a choice. They can remain governed by the old law, or they can choose to convert to the new law. The choice is yours. There's no mandatory requirement to convert to the new law. That was a significant point of modification that was made to address several significant concerns by our smaller nonprofit organizations throughout South Dakota. If everything goes as planned, the implementation date of this new legislation will be July 1st, 2016. So we have plenty of time before us for analysis of whether existing nonprofits should stay with the governance of the old act or convert to the new act. Just a handful of other announcements before we introduce speakers and launch into the programs. Might be appropriate to let you know who I am. I'm Pat Getzinger, along with Bobby Thury, one of the co-chairs of this program. I'm an attorney from Rapid City, South Dakota, and serve in a variety of different capacities with nonprofit organizations throughout the state. After this program, there's going to be a reception for all of the attendees hosted by the South Dakota Community Foundation. That reception is going to be held in the Maple Room, which is just right off of the restaurant, behind the fireplace inside the restaurant, as you enter the Rancota from the west. So please join us for that reception. It's a great opportunity for networking, reacquaintance of old friends, and to talk about the things that we've discussed here today. The other thing that I want to announce is the revitalization of the South Dakota Plan Giving Council. And inside the front cover of your book is a pamphlet talking about the South Dakota Plan Giving Council. And it invites you to register online as a member of the South Dakota Plan Giving Council. Some of us old-timers remember that the South Dakota Plan Giving Council was very active in its day and was responsible for launching the Leave a Legacy program. It was responsible for taking a significant role in the Governor's Day of Philanthropy, and it was also responsible for sponsoring several seminars that were held around the state by bringing in guest speakers from out of state, as well as profiling in-state South Dakota individuals with significant background in nonprofit matters. That organization has gone dormant, and there's been a group of us that came together to revitalize that organization, and we invite your serious consideration for membership in that organization. If you want to go old school and apply through paper, we have a membership application setting at the front desk that gives you the opportunity to sign up for the council at an annual membership fee of $150. And what it brings to you is the benefit of networking, information, access to the PPP website, and the PPP organization is the Partnership for Philanthropic Planning. And they've just got a wonderful website and great resources available to individuals that work in the nonprofit area. So I ask for your consideration and support in rejoining or joining the South Dakota Plan Giving Council. The other thing that I want to bring to your attention is the evaluation form that is contained in your materials on the very last page. Program evaluation, the last green page. You'll have the opportunity to evaluate this program and the speakers, and we ask you to do that before the conclusion of today's program. Just tear that page out, fold it over, leave it on your table, or drop it off at the front table so our state bar can evaluate the program and what to do for future programs. So we thank you for your cooperation on that. Now, to set the stage for why this is an important discussion, I want to draw your attention to some statistics. The number of nonprofits in South Dakota registered with the Secretary of State's office is 5,602. In addition to that, there are 1,361 churches registered with the Secretary of State's office. We have 817 foreign nonprofit corporations registered in South Dakota. And each and every one of us has the goal of raising the profile of philanthropy in South Dakota. We also have the goal of assisting our clients in leaving a legacy. And here's why. I want to draw your attention to the materials that are found behind the Getzinger Thury tab. And that material was produced in connection with a study done by the South Dakota Community Foundation. You have the executive summary, which is on the first 2 pages. Then you have a series of PowerPoint slides that further summarize the transfer of wealth study conducted by or on behalf of the South Dakota Community Foundation. We cannot be prepared enough to meet the needs of our nonprofit organizations and the donors or funding sources that support them. As you review the transfer of wealth materials, reflect on Winston Churchill's observation: we make a living by what we get, we make a legacy by what we give. The information in the transfer of wealth study vividly informs us of the abundant opportunity to build a legacy in South Dakota. It reminds us of the importance to connect the operational health of a nonprofit organization that is focused on transparency and accountability so that our nonprofits can attract donors, volunteers, and fulfill their charitable missions. The study summarizes the fact that between 2010 and 2060, a 50-year period, that there will be a total of $75 trillion that transfer between the generations in that 50-year period. South Dakota's slice of that number is between $101 and $112 billion that will transfer in the next 50 years. This breaks down to about $2 billion each year that transfers between the generations in South Dakota. If you carve off just a slice of that and put it into the nonprofits that exist in South Dakota, think of the possibilities that will exist in fulfilling the legacies our clients desire, as well as to fulfill the charitable missions of our nonprofit organizations. Today we have an all-star cast of speakers to introduce you to the revised Model Nonprofit Business Corporations Act adapted for South Dakota, and to bring to your attention other issues important to nonprofit organizations and the people that they serve, as well as the volunteers that work for them and their officers and directors. My co-chair is Bobby Thury, and Bobby did a yeoman's job of bringing this to you today. She was the chair of the committee in the business law section of the bar that was responsible for going through each and every word of the Act and the old Act to adopt it for South Dakota. Under her leadership, we have the Act ready to be introduced in the legislative session, and it's something that we're very proud of and hope that you'll find some relevance for your organization. We also have Paul Lewis. Well, Bobby, just for information, is a lawyer here with the Cutler Law Firm in Sioux Falls and very active in several nonprofits in this area. Paul Lewis, particularly proud of Paul. He represents the Main Street lawyer in rural South Dakota. He's got a general practice, but yet he finds time to take an interest in nonprofit law and philanthropic activity. So Paul comes to us from the Brunig Lewis Law Firm in Flanders, South Dakota, and stands in contrast to the urban lawyers that we have on the panel and represents the perspective of the Main Street lawyer in rural South Dakota. We also have Alex Hallback. Alex is a lawyer with the Cutler Law Firm as well here in Sioux Falls. Alex has a practice that's focused on nonprofit, mergers, acquisitions, transactional type practice areas, and has brought that interest in technology that he has to his presentation and remarks to you here today. And we'll be talking about the things associated with technology and the challenges it provides to our nonprofits in today's world. We also have Andrew Knudsen, a lawyer from the Gunderson, Palmer, Nelson, and Ashmore law firm in Rapid City, South Dakota. And the thing that I want to point out with each and every one of these folks is they're young lawyers. And as a veteran lawyer of the State Bar, I feel very good about the legacy we've left for our young lawyers to step in and carry the torch forward on looking after public policy, looking after the interests of the people that we serve and the clients that we have. And I'm just so proud that we have a good collection of young lawyers that will present on their topics here today. We will be taking a break during the course, and then we'll come back after that break and continue to pick up with our discussion. I will note that one of the highlights of the Rapid City presentation was the fact that we had a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. And I encourage you to ask questions as we go along with each individual speaker as you so desire, or at the end of their presentation, or save them for the panel discussion. But the panel discussion was a highlight of the Rapid event, and we encourage you to think of questions to ask along the way. We'll have a couple for you as well, and we'll be running around the auditorium with a microphone so we can get those questions out. So I'm going to bring Bobby up, and she'll kick off the substantive part of this program.